with artist Roxanne Coble, and she has a great tiny idea for making the cutest little book ever.
That's right, because awesome things come in tiny packages, especially when they are mini matchbook journals. So to start is really going to be constructing your mini journal. So I start with just taking a matchbook, and you can see it still has the matches in it. So I'm going to start by just tearing the matches out.
So you're not, at first I thought you might be actually taking out the staple at the bottom and removing the whole thing.
No, so it's actually really crucial. I want to keep the staple intact. I also want to make sure that I still have some cardboard at the bottom here, because that's what's going to help keep my lid closed once I adhere the paper in afterwards.
Good tip, important tip.
Yeah, just a bit. So keep the staple in there. Now you can see I still kind of have some like haggard cardboard mess here. So I'm just gonna take my scissors, gently fold back this little lid here, the little lip that has the staple. Gently fold here, and they're not like firm folds, just getting it out of the way. And then I'm gonna trim off this extra.
Cool.
So again, I want to be able to make sure that my lid still closes. So you might have to play with it a little bit, just kind of make sure, okay, does my lid close? Which it does. Lid closes, still got my staple, cardboard, I'm good to go. So now the next thing that I'm going to do is, get these matches out of the way, is cut my paper down. So this is just Bristol paper. And what I'm going to do is trace the size of my lid. And I always just start in the corner of my paper because it's the easiest thing to do.
And it's already square too,
Exactly,
so you don't have to worry about it. And this means that you can take a matchbook of any size, obviously, and this is going to be custom for it.
Exactly. So once I have kind of my lid outline here, I can then drag my line down, and you know, it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm like the queen of eyeballing it here. So
I was gonna say, that ruler is just, you know, it's a guideline.
Yeah, a very, very loose guideline here. There's also another reason too why I use Bristol paper and not something else. So kind of two things to note. First is that I'm using Bristol paper with a vellum finish. I find that the vellum finish has a little bit more of a tooth, so that when you go to add in other media, paint, ephemera, all that good stuff, it just sticks onto it a little bit better. The other thing too about using Bristol paper is that it's going to fold nicely. It's going to fold nice, and it's still going to fit in your matchbook. Because let's say if I used watercolor paper,
it would rip.
It might not fit. So it's just going to be too bulky for my lid. So you can see what I'm doing now is I'm just kind of gluing.
I see, and you're just using a gel medium to glue it in there, but you can use whatever you fit. And I notice you're not erasing that pencil line.
No, because I'm gonna end up covering it up anyways, so it's like, why waste, you know, time erasing it? So just kind of glue it in and then let this dry. So I'm gonna move over to some ones that I have dry here.
This is a great opportunity to find all sorts of cool matchbooks.
Yes, swap meets, flea markets, all that good stuff. You can find really cool stuff, unique kind of things that turn into a journal. It's really cool. So I have this glued in, it's nice and dry, and now I've got this crazy flap sticking out here. But what I'm gonna do is just start to accordion fold it down. So all I'm really doing is folding in a zigzag and using the edges of my lid as my guideline of where I'm gonna be folding.
And of course, you could use your thumb or a bone folder or something to go ahead and just really crease them.
Totally. If you want to be official and burnish it, or just, you know, go on the fly and fold that thing.
Do whatever feels good.
Exactly. And now you're going to have to play with it as you fold it, again, to make sure that it fits. So I think I got about 3 folds in here. It still fits into my staple, so I'm like, okay, that's good.
Because if you folded it one more time, it would probably be too fat.
Exactly.
And they would no longer close.
And you have to keep in mind, too, that we're going to be adding stuff into it, so you kind of need room for all that extra stuff. So all I'm going to do is just trim it off. Again, queen of eyeballing it. Who needs a ruler? And my mini journal is constructed. So from here, what I usually do, I mean, there's really no rules with this. You can just go to town, put in whatever you want, really treat it like a little art journal. But what I like to start with is usually just getting ephemera in, just getting stuff in, you know, not really thinking about it, filling up some space. You know, the other big thing too about these, what's great is that some people are really intimidated to work in little mini journals because it becomes this like precious thing, like I can't mess up this gorgeous little book that I just made. But if you have it off to the side, kind of if you're working on a larger project or art journal, you can just kind of dump leftover stuff into it.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And then you get something that you've already taken the time to coordinate the papers, coordinate the paint colors, do whatever, and it just evolves and becomes part of what you're doing. And I actually love the way that you've stored your collage papers as well. I think that's a great idea for just keeping things right at hand.
Because mixed media people are hoarders. So we always have tiny little scrappy scraps that just collect up.
You can't throw anything away. You might need it.
Exactly. So if you just throw it into a little strawberry basket, a little bin, then you can use it for all these awesome little kind of mini journals you might have going on. So once I have some ephemera kind of glued in, I can then just kind of come in with some paint and just fill up some space. Again, this should be really mindless. Just get it beefed up with some stuff. You can see I have some other ones here that I'm starting to get paint in, but by no means is this like little compositions or this kind of little perfect
You're not thinking, you're just covering space at this point. You're not trying to create something beautiful.
Exactly. And what's cool about this too is that you can flip it over the other way and really
you've done
have
both sides.
a double page here.
I notice if we look at some of the finished pieces that you do have a lot that have different shapes and doodles, and you had a great tip for finishing them off too.
This is like my super secret here, and it is to...
Well, it's not a secret much longer.
I know, but I love you. That's why I'm sharing it here. So sometimes if you're working with this much media, your pages are going to stick together. To prevent that, you just use a tiny dash of baby powder. Tiny.
I see that. You can barely see that you put any on.
And rub it in with your fingers. So your pages are going to smell super fresh, and they're not going to stick.
That's an awesome tip, and you can certainly use that tip, I assume, in your larger journals as well as your smaller journals. So it's just a reminder to take any of the ideas that we're playing with today and blow them on up.